Hi everyone, this is ArtCrumbs and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be giving you guys some tips on how to make your line art better in Clip Studio. Line art is really tough, and for a lot of people it's a really hard process. So what's the first thing you can do? The first thing that you can do is to use the correct size document. I know that sounds really silly, but hear me out. So let's just say we're going to make a brand new document. We're going to go to File, we're going to go to New, and we have this screen pop up. This is really helpful to pay attention to. In some instances, your resolution will be lower than 300 dpi. That's good. We want 300. We don't want lower than 300. Why? 300 dpi is the minimum for printing. I'm not printing my stuff. Well, that's fine and dandy. You think you may want to print it later. If you're using 300 dpi and you upload it to websites, it'll look crisp, it'll look clean, it'll be high resolution. You'll have less chance of social media ruining the quality of your image just because it has to compress it, it has to lower it down. So if you take a 72 dpi image and you upload it to, say, Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr and it ruins the quality, probably because you didn't use something that's high enough dpi. I mean, it's already pretty compressed, and then it compresses it again to upload it. It's just gonna look bad. So do yourself a favor and use at least 300 dpi. Now, what if you're doing manga? What if you're doing comic books? What Clip Studio was originally made for? You're gonna want to use at least 600 dpi. At least 600 dpi is pretty good for most pages. Why? With 600 dpi, when you shrink it down, it'll actually increase the resolution and make it even sharper. You get a higher resolution when you shrink something down, versus when you resize something up. It'll actually lessen the resolution and it'll make it look blurry and pixelated. That's why when you take an image, you download it off the internet and then you try to upscale it, it looks really crappy because you're trying to increase something that doesn't have a very high resolution to begin with. So start with a higher resolution and then shrink down if you have to get really nice crisp images. Now that we have a good document, we need to have a layer to draw on. We have a couple different options here, and I've made some things in advance to kind of help illustrate my points. No pun intended. No pun intended here. So I've got this really nice small illustration that I did way back when. I'm really disappointed that I made it too small for the image because I wanted it to take up the whole thing. What are my options? Well, one of the options that we have, that most people have, is we can simply redraw it and then resize it up, or scale up the original, and that's nice. I mean, that's definitely an option, but the problem is when we resize something and then we zoom in, either to work on it or to look at it at the full size. This is 100%. These are pixelated. It's not sharp. It's not crisp. It's not clean. So, as I mentioned before, that resizing up degrades the quality of your image, because with rasters, the computer program is now having to guess and kind of fill in those spaces, and so it doesn't stay sharp and crisp and clean. So one of the options that we have to alleviate this problem is to use what are called vector layers. So again, here's our original illustration. I'm going to knock down the opacity there for sake of ease seeing what I'm about to do here. And I've already created this, so you won't have to wait for me to draw it. This line art here was drawn on what's called a vector layer. Now, a vector is pretty much a visual representation of a math equation as far as graphics and such go. So these lines here are held within the software as math equations, to put it in the simplest way possible. And an interesting thing happens when I try to resize these. So I'm going to do our Control T and we're going to resize this. Now watch very closely. When I resize this, the actual line art does not change. Check out the width here on our vector layer, and then when I turn on our raster layer, which is the original layer that I resized, look at the difference. So you see here how this line, the vector layer, stayed nice and thin, and the raster layer, the line art changed, the thickness of the line art changed as I resized it. That makes a big difference. That can make a really huge difference when you're using even just simple basic transform tools. I really did not resize it that much. So if you're the sort of person where you do your line art and you'll copy paste, you'll transform, you'll scale, you do even just small minute changes, that can deform or degrade the quality of your line art over time. And so if you're that type of person, my suggestion to you would be to use vector layers throughout the line art process so that you can make sure that your line art stays nice and clean. Whoops. Bump my tablet there. So if we zoom in, we can actually even very, very clearly see the difference here. I mean, look at this. Look, just look right here and look at the, oopsie. There's not my day. Look at the quality here, just in the difference. Look how blurry this one is, and then look how crisp and clean that one is by comparison. That's a great change. So again, vector layers. Here's one other way, just to further illustrate the point of how beneficial these are. I've got two boxes here. I'm actually going to move them so that we can actually see which ones are which. So, oops, I forgot to resize this one. So this one so we have the top one is our raster. It's our typical standard layer. Our bottom one is our vector layer. Now, say we want to resize something, but we want to keep the line art width the same. But we don't, when you're making something smaller, you're squishing something, things can change. So let's take our vector layer, our raster layer here, and we'll resize it. We'll squish it over. You see how it distorts our line art? Like this, it squishes it in and it just looks really, really gross, and that's not what we want. We want to keep everything the same. We can do this on a vector layer. And then when we resize things, what it'll do is it'll actually keep the width the same. Look at this difference. Look at it. It's crazy. So again, vector layers, good, bad, it really depends on what you're using them for. If you're someone who uses a lot of free transformation tools, scaling, rotating, manipulation of your liner, vector layers would definitely probably be a really good benefit for you. So that one you'd have to experiment a little with and see what works best for you. So yeah, vector layers, they're awesome. Use them. Probably the last thing that we could do, well, it wouldn't want to be the last thing you could do, but the last one I'm going to show you is what's called a stabilizer. So if you're familiar with Paint Tool SAI, you'll already be familiar with this tool and generally how it works. You find this tool, so if we click on our pen tool, we're just going to pick our regular G pen, our brush size. I have mine set to 125. We're going to find our stabilizer, and we're going to make sure it's kicked down all the way to 0, just to help illustrate my point. So I'm trying to do this really nice line art, and I just can't get, like, if we zoom in, it's a little easier to see. We've got these really unshaky, inconsistent lines. The line width isn't clean. On the ends, they're not consistent whatsoever. It's really, really frustrating to get like blah 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 blah. We don't want those kinds of lines. That's not bueno. We don't like it. So what we can do to fix this is we can turn on our stabilizer. For example, I'm just going to kick it all the way up to the max at 100. And we're going to see how this changes. Now, again, I didn't change anything else. All I did was I changed my stabilizer. Look at how much cleaner and smoother. We don't have that shakiness in our lines anymore. I'm able to get these really nice, clean, crisp ends. They look so beautiful. And in addition, they're not shaky. We can see how these kind of shake a little bit like that. I purposely did that on purpose, just so you guys know, because I still have my stabilizer on. Yeah, so even with our stabilizer, we can go really, see, I'm even stopping sometimes. I should probably get a different layer here. Oops. So I'm going to stop and then keep going. And see how it doesn't really waver that much, except when I'm changing direction. Now, it does lag slightly behind us, but that's just because of how the stabilizer works. That's just an inherent part of the tool. That's something you'll have to learn to adjust to, but for the most part, our lines are still consistent. They're beautiful, they're smooth. It's very, very nice. So I hope that maybe that would be something useful to you guys. Another really great way to show off this is to do hatching. Hatching and cross hatching is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially in manga and comics. Turning on your stabilizer can really help you get those nice, clean edges. Make sure that you're staying line width consistency, which is really important in hatching. If you want to get those, also change your brush width. Like if you don't want to go bigger than 50, just put it on 50. It'll make your life a lot easier. So by combining, or if we don't want to go bigger than 100, you know, just do that. It'll make your life 10 bazillion times easier to actually make these small, minute little changes. Combine everything that I've just showed you with the stabilizer. You're gonna get really, really beautiful, crispy line art, and it's gonna look gorgeous. It's gonna look sexy, and everyone's gonna love it. So I hope that was really helpful to you guys. I know that was a little bit of a longer video, but I showed you 3 different tools. I showed you different examples, how they work, how they don't work, what might be beneficial to you or what may not be beneficial to you. Some people, they don't do a lot of transformation, they just draw straight as is. Those people may not need a vector layer. For people like me who are constantly resizing and adjusting because I'm working with manga, sometimes I really do need to have those vector layers on to make things look crispy and clean. Again, hatching, cross hatching, and manga, it's hard, it's difficult. Stabilizer saves my life, keeps those edges nice and super clean. Working with the right resolution, that can ruin a print job. And you literally, if that happens, you have to start completely over, and it's very, very sad. So I'm gonna write these down for you. So again, review. Use the correct resolution. At least 300 to 600 is usually pretty appropriate. If you resize a lot, you do transformations, use your vector layers. They're not 100% needed, but they sure can help. And then turn on your stabilizer. Stabilizers are not cheating. It is just another tool that you can use. Now this applies to digital line art. I will have a separate video for traditional line art, so keep an eye out for that one. I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much for coming. If you guys would love to help support me, you can either follow me here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button to see more videos, or if you want to watch me live doing demonstrations and whatnot, you can follow me on Twitch. I am ArtCrumbs, the exact same name as I am here. I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao!